The meeting room was huge and made of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Inside, creatures from across the galaxy sat in chairs that fit their strange bodies. Some had tentacles, others had wings, and a few looked like walking trees. They all came here once a year to talk about the most dangerous places in space. Ambassador Zara stood at the front of the room. She was tall and thin with 4 arms and purple skin. Her people, the Valonians, were known for being very careful about safety. She held a glowing tablet in 2 of her hands while the other 2 pointed at a giant screen behind her. "Today we talk about the Forbidden Worlds," Zara said. Her voice was clear and serious. "The places where no one can live. The places where death waits for anyone who tries to land." The screen showed pictures of different planets. Some were covered in ice, others burned with fire, and some had poisonous gas clouds. Each planet had a number next to it. The higher the number, the more dangerous it was. "Class 10 worlds have acid rain that can melt our ships," Zara explained. "Class 12 worlds have storms that last for years. Class 13 worlds shake so much that buildings fall down every day." The aliens in the room made worried sounds. Even the bravest of them had never tried to visit these nightmare worlds. "But there is one world that is worse than all others," Zara continued. The screen changed to show a blue and green planet that looked almost peaceful. "This is Sol 3. We call it the worst death world in the galaxy. It has a Class 15 rating." The room became very quiet. Everyone knew about Sol 3. It was the planet that gave space travelers nightmares. "The air on Sol 3 can burn you," Zara said. "Water falls from the sky in massive floods. The ground shakes without warning. The sun sends deadly rays that cook everything. Lightning strikes with the power of weapons. Wind moves so fast it can destroy cities." An alien that looked like a giant bug raised one of its arms. "How do we know all this if no one has ever come back from there?" "Our long-range sensors tell us everything," Zara replied. "We have watched this world for 2,000 years. We have seen the terrible storms. We have seen the ground crack open and swallow whole areas. We have seen the deadly radiation that comes from their sun. No life could survive there. Far away from this meeting, on the world they called Sol 3, but which its people called Earth, a man named Jake Morrison was getting ready for the most important trip of his life. He stood on the deck of a spaceship called the Endeavor. The ship was new and shiny, built by humans who had just figured out how to travel faster than light. Jake was tall with brown hair and kind eyes. He had been a pilot for many years, but he had never flown between stars before. Today he would be the first human to meet aliens from other worlds. "Are you nervous?" asked Lisa Rodriguez. She was a scientist who studied life on other planets. She had short black hair and wore glasses. Her job was to learn about alien life forms when they met them. "A little," Jake said honestly. "We don't know what we'll find out there. We don't even know if they'll be friendly." "The radio signals we picked up seemed peaceful," said Ben Taylor. He was the captain of the ship, a man with gray hair who had sailed Earth's oceans before he started flying in space. "They trade with each other. They have laws. They seem civilized." Lisa nodded. "I've studied their languages. They talk about art and science and philosophy. These aren't violent creatures. What none of the humans knew was that their radio signals had been detected by the galaxy's border guards. On a space station called Kepler Station, an alien named Commander Krelock was having the worst day of his very long life. Krelock looked like a giant octopus with blue skin and 12 tentacles. He had been in charge of watching the dangerous parts of space for 50 years. He had seen many strange things, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Sir," said one of his helpers, a small alien with 6 eyes, "the sensors are picking up something impossible." "What do you mean, impossible?" Krelock asked. His tentacles moved nervously. In his experience, impossible things were usually very bad things. "There's a ship coming from the Sol 3 system," the helper said. "It's moving under its own power. It has life signs aboard." Krelock's blue skin turned white with fear. "That can't be right. Check the sensors again." "I've checked them 5 times, sir. There's definitely a ship from the Class 15 Death World, and whoever is inside is still alive." Krelock had to sit down. His tentacles were shaking too much to hold him up. For 2,000 years, his people had known that Sol 3 was the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Nothing could live there. Nothing could survive there. The very idea was impossible. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he said in a whisper. "Tell them we have a situation." Back on the Endeavor, the humans had no idea they were causing panic across the galaxy. They were too busy being amazed by their first view of an alien space station. "Look at the size of that thing," Jake said as they got closer. The station was enormous, bigger than any city on Earth. It had spinning sections and glowing lights and docking bays that could hold hundreds of ships. "I'm reading at least 40 different ship types," said Chris Anderson, the mission's geologist. He was young and excited about everything they were seeing. "Look at those designs. Some of them don't even look like they should be able to fly." "Different worlds, different needs," Ben said wisely. "We build our ships to handle Earth's gravity and atmosphere. They probably build theirs for their own worlds." Amy Foster, the team's doctor, was watching the life signs on her screen. "I'm detecting dozens of different species on that station. This is going to be the most exciting medical research opportunity in human history." As the Endeavor got closer to the station, more and more alien ships began to arrive. Word had spread quickly through the galaxy that something impossible was happening. Ships came from the far corners of space to see if the reports were true. "We're getting a lot of attention," Lisa observed. "Look at all those ships. They're all watching us." "Maybe they don't get many visitors," Jake suggested. He was trying to stay calm, but his heart was beating fast. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. "First contact with alien life. Incoming message," said the ship's communication officer, Sam Brooks. He was an engineer who had helped build the translation system they hoped would let them talk to aliens. "They're asking us to identify ourselves." Ben took a deep breath. This is it. The moment that changes everything. He activated the communication system. "This is Captain Ben Taylor of the Earthship Endeavor. We come in peace, seeking friendship with the people of the galaxy." The silence that followed seemed to last forever. On Kepler Station, hundreds of aliens stared at their screens in disbelief. The impossible had happened. Someone had not only survived on Sol 3, they had built a spaceship and come to visit. Commander Krelock's tentacles were still shaking as he replied, "Earthship Endeavor, this is Kepler Station. Please proceed to Docking Bay 7, and please tell us how you're still alive." The humans looked at each other with confusion. Jake was the first to speak. "Still alive? What do they mean by that?" None of them knew that they were about to discover they were the most feared creatures in the galaxy, not because they were monsters, but because they had survived in a place where survival should have been impossible. They were about to learn that their normal, everyday lives were seen as miraculous feats of endurance by every other species in space. The adventure was just beginning. The docking bay of Kepler Station had never been so crowded. Ships from every corner of the galaxy had arrived in the past few hours, all carrying passengers who wanted to see the impossible with their own eyes. Creatures that normally would never meet were standing side by side, all staring at the human ship called Endeavor. Jake Morrison stepped out of the airlock first, followed by his crew. The gravity felt lighter than Earth normal, and the air had a slight metallic taste, but their suits showed that it was safe to breathe. What surprised Jake most was the complete silence that greeted them. Hundreds of alien beings filled the massive docking bay, but not one of them was making a sound. They just stared. Some had tentacles that twitched nervously. Others had eyes that glowed with different colors. A few looked like they might faint at any moment. "Hello," Jake said, raising his hand in what he hoped was a friendly gesture. "I'm Jake Morrison, pilot of the Endeavor. We're very happy to meet you." The silence stretched on for what felt like hours, but was probably only a few seconds. Finally, a tall figure with purple skin and 4 arms stepped forward. She moved very carefully, like someone approaching a dangerous animal. "I am Ambassador Zara of the Valonian Empire," she said. Her voice was shaking slightly. We welcome you to Kepler Station. But we must ask, how are you alive?" Jake looked confused. "Alive?" Why wouldn't we be alive? You come from Sol 3, said a blue, tentacled creature that Jake would later learn was Commander Krelock. No one can survive on Sol 3. It is the most dangerous world in the galaxy. Sol 3? Captain Ben Taylor stepped forward. Do you mean Earth? Our home planet? A wave of gasps went through the crowd of aliens. Several smaller creatures actually did faint this time and had to be carried away by others. Earth, Ambassador Zara repeated the word like it was a curse. You call the Deathworld Earth. Deathworld. Dr. Lisa Rodriguez looked genuinely puzzled. I'm sorry, but I think there's been some kind of mistake. Earth is a beautiful planet. It's perfect for life. That's why we evolved there. The aliens looked at each other with expressions that would have been comical if they hadn't been so terrified. Commander Krelock's tentacles were shaking so hard he could barely hold himself upright. The radiation levels alone should have killed you, he managed to say. Your sun puts out deadly rays that can cook living tissue. Sunlight? Chris Anderson, the young geologist, laughed. We need sunlight to live. Plants use it to make food through photosynthesis. Humans need it to make vitamin D. Sure, too much can give you a sunburn, but that's not serious. Sunburn, Commander Krelock whispered. You allow your skin to be burned by stellar radiation and consider it minor. Dr. Amy Foster, the medical officer, was watching the aliens with growing concern. Many of them were showing signs of stress that looked serious. Are you all feeling all right? You seem very upset. Would you like us to return to our ship while you process this information? Return to your ship? Ambassador Zara's voice went up several notes. You mean you plan to go back to that nightmare planet? Well, yes, Captain Taylor said slowly. Earth is our home. Our families are there. Our cities, our farms, our everything. Why would we not go back? The crowd of aliens began murmuring among themselves in dozens of different languages. The translation devices were working overtime, but most of the words coming through were variations of impossible and how. A creature that looked like a walking crystal stepped forward. This was Dr. Yalmora, the galaxy's leading expert on hostile environments. Her crystalline body was flashing red with what Jake would learn was extreme agitation. Perhaps we should discuss this in a more private setting, Dr. Yalmora suggested. There seems to be some confusion about the nature of your world. An hour later, the humans found themselves in a large conference room with representatives from the major galactic powers. The aliens sat as far away from them as possible while still being able to hear the conversation. Let us start with basic facts, said Ambassador Zara, consulting a glowing tablet. Our sensors show that your world experiences regular atmospheric, water precipitation events. You mean rain? Lisa asked. Rain, Zara repeated the word carefully. You have a name for it. This means it happens regularly. Of course it happens regularly, Chris said. Rain is part of the water cycle. Water evaporates from oceans and lakes, forms clouds, then falls as rain. It's how plants get the water they need to grow. And you go outside during these precipitation events? Dr. Yalmora asked. Sometimes, Amy replied. Kids love to play in puddles after it rains. Some people like walking in the rain. It's refreshing. The aliens looked at each other in horror. On most of their worlds, any liquid falling from the sky would be considered a disaster requiring immediate shelter. What about the seismic activity? Asked an alien who looked like a giant armored bug. Our readings show your planet's crust is constantly moving. Earthquakes, you mean? Sam Brooks, the engineer, nodded. Yeah, we get those. The planet has tectonic plates that shift around. Most earthquakes are pretty small. You might not even notice them. The big ones can be dangerous, but we've learned to build structures that can handle them. You build permanent structures knowing the ground will shake. The bug-like alien's mandibles clicked nervously. California has some of the most expensive real estate in the world, and it's right on a major fault line, Sam explained. We just engineer our buildings to flex with the movement instead of breaking. Captain Taylor was beginning to understand what was happening. I think I see the problem. You've been monitoring our planet from space and seeing all the natural phenomena that occur there. But you don't understand that we've adapted to live with these conditions. Adapted, Commander Krelock repeated. You mean your species has changed to survive these conditions? Well, yes and no, Lisa said. We evolved on Earth, so we're naturally suited to Earth conditions. But we've also learned to use technology and planning to deal with challenges. For example, Amy added, humans who live in areas with lots of sun have darker skin that protects them from radiation. People who live in cold climates have developed clothing and heating systems to stay warm. You mentioned radiation again, Dr. Yalmora said weakly. You are aware that your star emits lethal levels of radiation? The ozone layer protects us from the worst of it, Chris explained. And like Amy said, our skin provides natural protection. We also use sunscreen and protective clothing when we need to. Sunscreen, Ambassador Zara wrote the word down carefully. You have developed technology to protect yourselves from stellar radiation. It's just lotion, Amy laughed. You can buy it at any store. Kids use it when they go to the beach. Beach, Commander Krelock whispered. You have recreational areas where you expose yourselves to radiation while near large bodies of the liquid that falls from your sky. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound kind of dangerous, Jake admitted. But millions of people go to beaches every year. It's fun. You swim in the ocean, play in the sand, maybe surf or play volleyball. The room fell silent again. The aliens were trying to process the idea that humans willingly expose themselves to multiple deadly hazards simultaneously for entertainment. Perhaps, said Dr. Yalmora very carefully, you could tell us about a typical day in the life of a human on your world. Sure, Chris said cheerfully. Yesterday, I got up early and went for a run in the park. It was a beautiful morning. Sunny, but not too hot. After my run, I had breakfast on my patio and read the news. Then I drove to work at the university. You went outside voluntarily during stellar radiation exposure, Dr. Yalmora translated. You engaged in high-energy physical activity. You consumed nutrition while continuing to expose yourself to radiation. Then I spent the day teaching geology classes and working on my research about earthquake prediction, Chris continued. After work, I met some friends for dinner at a restaurant with outdoor seating. More voluntary radiation exposure, Commander Krelock added. That evening, there was a thunderstorm, so I sat on my covered porch and watched the lightning, Chris finished. I love storms. The power of nature is amazing. The aliens stared at him in complete horror. Chris had just described a day that included voluntary radiation exposure, high-energy physical activity, consuming food in unsafe conditions, and watching deadly electrical discharges for entertainment. Is this a normal day for your species? Ambassador Zara asked. Pretty typical, Jake agreed. Though Chris is more of an outdoor person than some. My neighbor spent yesterday working in her garden, then took her kids to the playground. She exposed juveniles to these conditions? Dr. Yalmora's crystal body flashed bright red. Kids need fresh air and exercise, Amy explained. Playing outside is good for them. Builds strong bones and muscles, helps their immune systems develop. The meeting ended shortly after that. The aliens needed time to process what they had learned. The humans were escorted to comfortable quarters while the galactic representatives tried to figure out what to do with beings who treated daily survival as a casual, recreational activity. I think we may have scared them, Lisa said as they settled into their assigned rooms. They seemed really worried about us, Amy agreed. Maybe they're from worlds that are much safer than Earth. The biggest meeting room in the galaxy was full of scared aliens. Every species that could travel through space had sent someone to this emergency meeting. They all wanted to know the same thing. How could anyone live on Sol 3, Council Leader? Mordian was very old and very wise. His people had started the Galactic Council thousands of years ago. He looked like a tall tree with golden bark and glowing leaves. His voice was deep and calm even when everyone else was panicking. We must stay calm, Mordian said to the room full of worried aliens. These humans have done something we thought was impossible. We need to understand how they did it. In another part of the space station, the humans were trying to explain their normal lives to aliens who thought every word was a miracle story. Jake Morrison sat at a table with Dr. Yalmora, the galaxy's expert on dangerous planets. Dr. Yalmora looked like a walking crystal with many sharp edges that changed color when she was excited or scared. Right now, she was flashing red with worry. "You said you like to be in the sun," Dr. Yalmora said carefully. "Your people do this on purpose?" "Sure," Jake replied with a smile. "We call it sunbathing. Most people enjoy a nice sunny day. Kids play outside in the sun all the time." Dr. Yalmora's crystal body flashed bright red. "But the radiation from your star should kill you in minutes. How do you survive direct exposure to such deadly rays?" Lisa Rodriguez, who was sitting nearby, laughed softly. "Deadly rays? It's just sunlight. We need some sun to stay healthy. Our bodies make vitamin D from sunlight. Too much can give you a sunburn, but that's not usually serious." "Sunburn?" Dr. Yalmora's voice got very high. "You mean your skin actually burns from the radiation and you consider this normal?" "Well, we try to avoid getting burned," Lisa explained. "We use sunscreen or wear hats, but a little sun is good for you." Across the room, Ben Taylor was talking to Commander Veltrak, a military leader whose people were known as great warriors. Commander Veltrak looked like a giant lizard with thick armor covering his body. He had fought in many battles and thought he was very brave, but right now he looked terrified. "Tell me about this rain you mentioned," Commander Veltrak said. His voice was shaking a little. "Rain?" Ben looked confused. "Water falls from the sky when clouds get too heavy. It helps plants grow. Kids like to play in puddles after it rains." "Water falls from the sky?" Commander Veltrak repeated slowly. "Large amounts of this liquid fall on your heads? Sometimes it's just a light shower. Sometimes it's a heavy storm," Chris Anderson added helpfully. He had joined the conversation and was happy to explain Earth weather. "During monsoon season in some places it can rain for days." Commander Veltrak's armored plates clicked together nervously. On his world, even a small amount of liquid falling from the sky would be considered a disaster. The idea of standing in the rain for fun was beyond his understanding. "And you build your cities knowing this will happen?" he asked. "Of course," Chris said. "We have storm drains to handle the water and umbrellas to stay dry if we need to go outside. Some people actually like walking in the rain." Sam Brooks was showing pictures of Earth cities to a group of alien engineers. The aliens looked like metal robots, but they were actually a species that had evolved from living machines. Their leader, Engineer Zeptar, was studying the images with great interest and growing horror. "These structures," Engineer Zeptar said, pointing at the pictures with his metal finger, "they are built directly on top of geological fault lines." "Yeah, that's San Francisco," Sam replied. "Beautiful city, great food, nice weather most of the time. But the seismic activity," Engineer Zeptar's voice buzzed with electronic distress. "Your sensors must detect constant ground movement." "We get earthquakes sometimes," Sam admitted. "But we build the buildings to handle it. Flexible foundations, reinforced steel, that sort of thing. Most earthquakes aren't that bad." "Most earthquakes?" Engineer Zeptar's metal body actually started shaking. "You experience multiple seismic events and consider some of them acceptable?" Amy Foster was having her own strange conversation with Dr. Zimara, the station's chief medical officer. Dr. Zimara looked like a jellyfish floating in a tank of blue liquid. She had tentacles that moved constantly as she talked. "I am confused by these medical records you have shared," Dr. Zimara said. Her tentacles twisted into worried knots. "This human named Kevin Wright appears to have suffered major cardiovascular failure." "Heart attack, yes," Amy replied, "but he recovered well. Triple bypass surgery, followed by cardiac rehabilitation. He's back to playing golf now." "Playing golf?" Dr. Zimara's tentacles stopped moving entirely. "After major organ failure, he engages in recreational activities?" "Kevin's actually in better shape now than he was before the heart attack," Amy said proudly. "He changed his diet, started exercising more. The human body is pretty good at healing itself if you give it the right help." Dr. Zimara's blue liquid began bubbling with agitation. "Your species recovers from organ failure and becomes stronger?" "We have a saying," Amy explained. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. The human body adapts to challenges. This was exactly the wrong thing to say to a galaxy full of species whose bodies did not adapt well to anything. Dr. Zimara fainted, which for her species meant her tentacles went limp and she sank to the bottom of her tank. The most shocking conversation was happening between Chris Anderson and Dr. Felnara, who studied disasters that wiped out entire planets. Dr. Felnara looked like a wise old turtle with a shell covered in glowing symbols that showed her emotions. Right now, the symbols were flashing red with alarm. You mentioned something about extinction events, Dr. Felnara said carefully. Could you explain what you mean? Oh, sure, Chris said happily. He loved talking about Earth's history. Our planet has had 5 major extinction events that we know about. The big one was the Permian extinction about 250 million years ago. It killed about 90% of all life on Earth. Dr. Felnara's shell symbols turned bright white with shock. 90% of life died, and yet life continued? Life always finds a way, Chris continued cheerfully. After each extinction event, new species evolved to fill the empty spaces. The dinosaurs got wiped out by an asteroid impact 65 million years ago, which was actually good for mammals like us. Your species evolved after a planetary extinction event? Dr. Felnara's voice was barely a whisper. Well, our ancestors were small mammals that survived when the dinosaurs died. Then there was the Toba supervolcano about 70,000 years ago that almost finished off early humans. Our population dropped to maybe 10,000 people worldwide. And you survived? Obviously, Chris laughed. Here we are, right? Humans are pretty tough when we need to be. Dr. Felnara's shell went completely dark. She had spent her entire career studying extinction events, and every single galactic species had evolved on worlds that had never experienced such disasters. The idea of a species that had survived multiple near-total extinctions was beyond her ability to understand. Word of these conversations spread quickly through the space station. Within hours, every alien on Kepler station knew that the humans were even more impossible than they had first thought. They didn't just survive on a death world. They thrived there, treating deadly disasters as minor inconveniences. The Emergency Galactic Council meeting was called to order again. This time, the room was packed with aliens who had traveled from across the galaxy to see the impossible humans for themselves. We have a problem, announced Ambassador Zara, who had been the first to classify Sol 3 as a Class 15 death world. Everything we thought we knew about planetary classification is wrong. How so? Asked Council Leader Mordine. These humans have just described their daily lives to our experts, Zara explained. What they consider normal activities would kill most of us within minutes. They expose themselves to deadly radiation for pleasure. They live through atmospheric water bombardment events. They build cities on unstable geological foundations. They recover from injuries that would be fatal to our species. The room erupted in worried chatter. Representatives from 47 different species all started talking at once, their voices mixing into a chaos of fear and confusion. But that's not the worst part, Zara continued, raising her voice above the noise. Their planet has survived multiple extinction events. Their species evolved through disasters that would destroy entire galactic civilizations. The room went completely silent. What are you saying? Mordine asked quietly. I'm saying that Sol 3 isn't a Class 15 death world, Zara replied. From the human perspective, it's a perfectly normal planet that produces beings who are virtually indestructible. By galactic standards, the implications hit the assembled aliens like a physical blow. If humans could survive on Sol 3, what else could they survive? If they had evolved through multiple extinction events, how tough were they compared to species that had evolved on gentle, stable worlds? More importantly, if humans were this resilient and they had just developed space travel, what would happen when they started exploring the galaxy? For the first time in galactic history, every species in the known universe faced the same terrifying question. What do you do when the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy turn out to be friendly neighbors who just want to say hello? The aliens had thought they understood how scary humans were. They were wrong. Over the next few days, every casual conversation with the humans revealed new horrors that the galaxy had never imagined. It started during breakfast in the stations, Dining hall. Lisa Rodriguez was eating with Dr. Yalmora and mentioned that she had recently finished something called a marathon back on Earth. What is a marathon? Dr. Yalmora asked, her crystal body flickering with curiosity. It's a race where you run 26.2 miles without stopping, Lisa explained between bites of alien fruit that tasted surprisingly like apples. I finished in just under 4 hours. Not my best time, but not bad for someone my age. Dr. Yalmora's crystal body went completely dark. For her species, walking more than a few hundred meters was exhausting. The idea of running for over 26 miles was like describing magic. You moved continuously for 4 hours? Dr. Yalmora's voice was barely a whisper. Some people are much faster, Lisa said helpfully. The world record is just over 2 hours. And then there are ultramarathons, which can be 50 miles, 100 miles, or even longer. Dr. Yalmora made a sound like breaking glass and had to be carried away by medical staff. The news spread quickly. Within an hour, General Korthak, the galaxy's most feared military commander, came to find Ben Taylor. General Korthak looked like a giant warrior with thick armor and 4 arms, each holding a different weapon. His species had conquered 12 star systems through their superior fighting ability. I need to ask you about your soldiers, General Korthak said. His voice was trying to sound calm, but Ben could hear the worry in it. What would you like to know? Ben asked politely. How far can your military personnel march in a day? Ben thought for a moment. Standard training includes 20-mile forced marches with full equipment. That's about 60 pounds of gear. Special forces can do much more, sometimes covering over 30 miles in rough terrain. General Korthak's forearms began shaking. His best warriors could march maybe 5 miles before needing several hours of rest. The idea of soldiers who could walk 20 miles while carrying heavy equipment was terrifying. And they do this regularly? He asked. It's basic training, Ben replied. We expect our soldiers to be in good physical condition. General Korthak had to sit down. His species had ruled through strength for thousands of years. But now he was beginning to understand that they might not be the strongest species in the galaxy anymore. But the real shock came when Amy Foster was showing some medical records to Dr. Zamara and the other doctors on the station. Amy had brought files about common human injuries and treatments, thinking it might help with medical cooperation between species. This human named John Davis, said Dr. Petrex, a snake-like alien who was known as the galaxy's best surgeon. According to this file, he suffered multiple bone fractures in what you call a skiing accident. Yes, he broke his leg in 3 places, Amy confirmed. Pretty bad break, but he healed up fine. It says here he returned to active duty, Doctor. Petrex continued, his long body coiling with nervous energy. What does that mean? He went back to work, Amy explained. John's a construction worker. He was back on the job site in 8 weeks. The medical staff went completely quiet. For most galactic species, breaking a bone was a life-ending injury. The idea that bones could heal and become strong again was impossible to believe. Your bones repair themselves? Dr. Zamara asked from her tank, her tentacles moving frantically. Of course, Amy said. Broken bones heal stronger than they were before if you set them properly. John's leg is probably tougher now than his other leg. Dr. Zamara fainted again, sinking to the bottom of her tank. What about this other case? Dr. Petrex asked, his voice shaking. This woman named Rachel Martinez. She suffered what appears to be massive internal bleeding. Amy looked at the file. Car accident. She needed emergency surgery to repair internal injuries, but she made a full recovery. She's back to playing tennis now. Playing tennis? Dr. Petrex's snake-like body went rigid with shock. After major trauma to internal organs, she engages in athletic activities? Rachel says the accident made her appreciate life more, Amy continued. She's actually more active now than she was before. She runs, plays tennis, goes hiking on weekends. The concept of post-traumatic growth was completely alien to the assembled doctors. Most galactic species never fully recovered from serious injuries. The idea that humans could not only heal but become stronger and more active after trauma was beyond their understanding. But Chris Anderson delivered the revelation that would change military thinking across the galaxy. He was in the station's geology lab, talking with alien scientists about Earth's history, when he mentioned something that seemed normal to him. The Yellowstone supervolcano is probably our biggest geological concern, Chris said while showing images of Earth's surface. If it erupts, it could cause problems for the whole planet. Dr. Vextara, a rock-like alien who studied dangerous geological events, leaned forward with interest. You have an active supervolcano on your world? Well, it's overdue for an eruption, Chris said casually. It erupts roughly every 600,000 years, and it's been about 640,000 years since the last one. But we have monitoring systems set up, we'd get some warning. And your people continue to live there? Dr. Vexitara's rocky surface began cracking with stress. Sure, most of the time it's perfectly safe. Yellowstone is actually a beautiful place. Lots of tourists visit every year to see the geysers and hot springs. Tourists, Dr. Vextara repeated slowly. Your people visit an active supervolcano for recreation. The wildlife there is amazing, Chris continued enthusiastically. Bears, wolves, elk, bison. My family goes camping there every summer. Dr. Vexitara's rocky body crumbled slightly. The idea of taking children to camp near a supervolcano was so far beyond his understanding that his mind couldn't process it. But the conversation that truly terrified the galaxy happened when Jake Morrison was talking with Commander Krelock about human space exploration plans. We're hoping to establish colonies on Mars within the next few decades, Jake explained. It's our closest planetary neighbor. Commander Krelock, whose tentacles had finally stopped shaking, looked at the data about Mars. But this world appears to be Class 11 hostile. Thin atmosphere, extreme temperature variations, dust storms that last for months. It'll be challenging, Jake admitted. But we've done studies. With the right equipment and preparation, it's definitely doable. You plan to colonize a Class 11 Deathworld voluntarily? Commander Krelock's tentacles started shaking again. Mars is actually pretty mild compared to some places on Earth, Jake said. Antarctica is harder to live in, and we have research stations there. The deep ocean is more dangerous, and we have submarines that go down there regularly. Commander Krelock had to use all 12 of his tentacles to hold himself up. The humans weren't just surviving on one impossible world. They were planning to spread to other impossible worlds for fun. The final straw came when Sam Brooks was showing some aliens pictures of human recreational activities. He pulled up photos from his last vacation. This is from when I went mountain climbing in Colorado, Sam said, showing a picture of himself on top of a tall peak. The view was incredible. You climbed to that height voluntarily? Asked Engineer Zeptar, his metal body sparking with disbelief. It's a popular hobby, Sam replied. Some people climb even higher mountains. Mount Everest is over 29,000 feet high, and hundreds of people climb it every year. In the thin atmosphere at that altitude, most species would lose consciousness, Engineer Zeptar calculated quickly, and the temperature would cause immediate tissue damage. Yeah, it's pretty cold up there, Sam agreed, and the air is thin, so you have to be in good shape, but it's an amazing experience. And here, Sam continued, showing another picture. This is from my scuba diving trip in the Caribbean. I went down about 100 feet. You descended voluntarily into a high-pressure liquid environment? Engineer Zeptar's voice rose to a high-pitched whine. The coral reefs are beautiful, Sam said. Some people go much deeper. The world record for deep diving is over 1,000 feet. Engineer Zeptar's systems overloaded and he shut down completely, his mechanical body going dark. By the end of the week, the entire galaxy understood the truth. Humans weren't just survivors, they were the ultimate survivors. They had evolved on a world so dangerous that it had forged them into beings who could thrive anywhere. They sought out danger for entertainment. They recovered from injuries that would kill other species. They planned to colonize worlds that the galaxy considered uninhabitably hostile. The emergency session of the Galactic Council reached a unanimous conclusion. They would offer humanity full membership in the galactic community immediately, with one request. Please don't hurt us. and please help us explore all the places we've been too scared to go. For the first time in galactic history, the most dangerous species in the universe had turned out to be the most helpful. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy was a completely different place. The arrival of humans had changed everything that aliens thought they knew about what was possible. Ben Taylor stood on the bridge of his new ship, the Unity. He was no longer just a captain. The Galactic Council had made him an admiral and put him in charge of something called the Joint Exploration Fleet. The title sounded fancy, but what it really meant was that humans would help aliens go to scary places. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the Outer Rim," said Lisa Rodriguez, who was now his chief science officer. "The Void Stalkers are attacking colonies again." Ben nodded grimly. The Void Stalkers were the galaxy's worst nightmare, mysterious. Creatures that lived in the dangerous parts of space where no civilized species could survive. For 50 years, they had been attacking the safer worlds, then disappearing back into regions too hostile for anyone to follow. "What's the environmental rating of their territory?" Ben asked. "Class 12 to Class 14, Lisa replied. "Radiation storms, gravitational anomalies, asteroid fields moving at high speed. No galactic species has ever been able to establish a base there." "Sounds like a job for humans," Ben said with a slight smile. 3 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at the edge of Void Stalker territory. Behind them came a massive fleet of alien ships, all staying at what they considered a safe distance. The aliens wanted to watch, but they had no intention of getting any closer to such a dangerous region of space. Commander Sarah Davis led the first scouting mission in her ship, the Explorer. Sarah was a former Marine who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments Earth could offer. To her, flying through a radiation storm was just another day at the office. "Environmental suits are holding up fine," she reported back to the fleet. "The radiation levels are high, but not worse than working near a nuclear reactor. The gravitational fields are tricky, but our navigation systems are handling it." On the alien command ship, General Korthak watched the scanner displays with amazement. "They're flying through conditions that would destroy our ships in minutes, and they're calling it manageable." "That's humans for you," said Ambassador Zara, who had become humanity's strongest supporter on the Galactic Council. "What kills us is just another problem to solve for them." Sarah's team found the Void Stalker base within a week. It was built inside an asteroid that was constantly bombarded by radiation and gravitational waves. Any normal species would have died instantly in such conditions. "I can see why they chose this place," Sarah reported. "It's like building a fortress in the middle of a hurricane. No one else could get close enough to attack them." "What do the Void Stalkers look like?" asked Dr. Rodriguez over the radio. "They're actually not that scary," Sarah replied. "They look like giant jellyfish, but they seem to be wearing some kind of environmental suits. I think they might not be naturally adapted to these conditions either." This was a shocking discovery. The galaxy had assumed the Void Stalkers were monsters who thrived in deadly environments. Instead, they were just another species that had been forced to hide in places too dangerous for anyone else to reach. "They're trying to communicate," reported Lieutenant Mike Thompson, Sarah's communications officer. "I'm getting signals that look like distress calls." "Distress calls?" Ben's voice came through clearly despite the interference. "Are they asking for help?" It took 3 days of careful translation work, but eventually the truth came out. The Void Stalkers weren't evil invaders. They were refugees. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a natural disaster centuries ago, and they had been forced to live in the most hostile parts of space because it was the only place the galaxy had left unclaimed. When they attacked other worlds, it wasn't for conquest. It was to steal supplies they needed to survive in their harsh environment. They had been trying to ask for help for decades, but their messages never made it through the radiation storms that surrounded their territory. "This changes everything," Ben told the assembled alien fleet commanders during a video conference. "These aren't monsters, they're survivors, just like any other species. They just ended up in a place where only humans can easily reach them." The rescue operation that followed became the stuff of galactic legend. Human ships flew supplies through radiation storms and gravitational anomalies that would have destroyed any other vessel. Human engineers worked in environmental suits while floating in space, building new habitat modules in conditions that should have been instantly fatal. Dr. Amy Foster led the medical team that treated Voidstalker refugees who had been suffering from radiation poisoning for generations. Their biology is actually quite similar to some Earth marine life, she reported. With proper medical care and a safe environment, they'll be fine. The grateful Voidstalkers shared their advanced technology with humanity, including shields, that could protect ships from the worst environmental hazards. This technology was quickly shared with the rest of the galaxy, opening up vast new regions for exploration and colonization. But the Voidstalker rescue was just the beginning. Word spread quickly that humans could go anywhere and do anything. Alien species that had been trapped on single worlds for thousands of years began asking for human help to explore their own star systems. Commander Jake Morrison found himself leading expeditions to worlds that had been written off as impossible. He helped the crystalline people establish colonies on high-radiation worlds where their crystal bodies could absorb energy directly from dangerous solar emissions. He guided the plant-like Verdani to worlds with extreme weather patterns that would help them grow stronger and more resilient. "It's amazing," Jake told his crew as they orbited a world that was classified as Class 13 hostile. "What we see as challenges, they see as opportunities once they realize survival is possible." The most successful partnership was with the Aquatic Federation, whose people lived in underwater cities. Dr. Sam Brooks worked with their engineers to explore the crushing depths of gas-giant oceans and underwater volcanic vents that no one had ever thought to investigate. "The pressure down here would crush most ships instantly," Sam reported from inside a human deep-sea exploration vessel. "But for the Aquatic Federation, this is like exploring paradise. The mineral resources alone will transform their civilization." Lisa Rodriguez established the galaxy's first multi-species research station on a world with extreme temperature variations. During the day, the surface was hot enough to melt most metals. At night, it was cold enough to freeze nitrogen solid. But human environmental suits allowed scientists from dozens of species to work together, studying phenomena they had never been able to observe safely before. "We're learning more about planetary formation in 6 months than we learned in the previous 1,000 years, reported Dr. Felnara, who had overcome her shock about human resilience and become one of their strongest research partners. The cultural exchange was just as revolutionary as the scientific advances. Amy Foster started a medical exchange program where human doctors learned alien healing techniques while teaching aliens about human recovery and rehabilitation methods. The combination of galactic precision medicine with human biological resilience created breakthrough treatments that helped every species in the galaxy. Chris Anderson's geological surveys opened up mining operations on worlds that had been considered too unstable to approach. Working with alien partners, human teams extracted rare minerals from active volcanic regions and unstable asteroid fields, providing resources that had been desperately needed by many civilizations. The transformation of galactic civilization reached its peak when the Council announced the Great Expansion Project. For the first time in galactic history, every known world would be explored and potentially colonized, no matter how dangerous it seemed. "We estimate that human partnership will triple the number of habitable worlds in the galaxy," announced Council leader Mordian during the project's opening ceremony. "What we once considered death worlds will become new homes for species that had never dreamed of leaving their origin planets." Ben Taylor stood before the assembled representatives of 93 species as the project was officially launched. Behind him, human and alien ships prepared to depart for the farthest reaches of known space. "6 months ago, you were afraid of us because we survived on a Class 15 death world," Ben said to the gathered aliens. "Today we stand together as partners, ready to explore places that no one thought possible to reach. You've taught us that survival isn't just about enduring hardship, it's about helping others thrive despite the challenges they face." The galaxy had spent thousands of years avoiding the dangerous places in space. Now, with human partnership, there was nowhere they couldn't go, and nothing they couldn't accomplish together. As the fleet departed for their first joint expedition to explore the galactic core's radiation-soaked systems, Ambassador Zara made a note in her official log. Recommendation: Immediately reclassify Sol 3 from Class 15 Deathworld to Class 1 Paradise. What we feared as the most dangerous place in the galaxy has proven to be the source of our greatest hope for the future. The age of galactic exploration had truly begun, and at its heart were the impossible humans who had turned the galaxy's greatest fear into its greatest strength.